Hello, welcome back to Arc of Gyan. Today I'm coming at you with another book review, Uplift War by David Brin. This book rounds out the first trilogy in the Uplift saga by David Brin, and I highly recommend it. I do also recommend that one read Startide Rising before reading Uplift War, simply because the events in Startide Rising kick off the plot of Uplift War. The characters don't carry over, but you have to know what happened with Startide Rising to know why the conflicts in Uplift War are happening. Briefly, the plot is this. Humans are leased a colony on a dying world called Garth in order to, one, make the biosphere come back to life. There had been a tragedy on this world where the diversity of life on this planet was very much reduced, and humans are trying to bring the planet back to life. It's also considered kind of like bad real estate because of that. So, of course, humans were given it by the larger galactic society, almost to prove that they're not good enough to handle it. Anyways, things are going along. Humans are doing, the Earthling colony is doing its best. It's mostly humans and chimpanzees working together to try and bring this planet back to life. When, due to events that happened in Streaker, a race of aliens called the Gabru try to invade and hold a military occupation on Garth. And that really throws a lot of the ecological work off kilter, if you can imagine. Because these Gabru, they're supposed to obey certain rules when it comes to environmental awareness as per galactic law, but at the same time they are not interested in following all of these laws to the letter. They have their own ideal of what is perfectly legal and righteous. And that's the gist of it. That's the gist of the plot. The Gabru come, they invade humans and chimps, and a few aliens that happen to be on the planet must navigate this new situation with a military occupation from a species of aliens that most of the characters don't know about. One of the running themes in this book that I found the most interesting was that of empathy. For a book called Uplift War, empathy was a big theme in here. We finally get our chance to meet the Timbrimi, a race of aliens that David Brin talked up as being humanity's closest allies. And their similarities to us, at an appearance level, lead to that. We can relate to each other a little bit more easily than maybe other species. But that similarity is only skin deep. One thing the Timbrimi have that humans do not have is a heightened empathetic sense. And David Brin really does go out of his way to paint empathy as extrasensory. I thought that was really important and really valid to say. It is one of the most mindful themes in this book. How empathy can be used and crafted to change your perception of others, to change others' perception of the world. It was just interesting in that way. One important scene involving empathy involves a character named Robert Oneagle. He has a very close interaction with one of the Timbrimi characters, and thus starts to develop his own empathetic sense, as weak as a human's empathetic sense is compared to a Timbrimi. Through the course of events, he ends up in a situation where he's having to bring a message to another location, running on foot. along the way he has to stop and eat. And so he decides that he must go hunting. And he uses this budding empathetic sense to learn how to extract the resources he needs from his environment with causing the least amount of damage to the environment, to the biosphere. He doesn't do it through logic. He does it through empathy. He learns which of these herding animals, like deer-like animals, has the least potential for adding to the population of these animals. And he goes after that one. And to me that's interesting, because that's probably how hunters of old would have done it. No one knew why you go after the male in a herd, but you would do that. I mean, if they're bigger, it provides more meat. That's a logical reason, I guess. But I do think that an empathetic sense is part and parcel to a lot of hunter-gatherer societies, and we've forgotten that to a large extent. I also feel like David Brin uses situations in this story to really stretch the reader's own empathetic sense. He shows us things like chimpanzee romances. Now, this, on one hand, stretched my empathetic sense to the breaking point, and I think that was a practical joke on David Brin's part. He was having a laugh when he wrote sentences or scenarios where the reader, empathizing with a male chimpanzee, is supposed to find something a female is doing very attractive, or find an attractive smile from a female. I'd be scratching my head trying to figure out what a chimpanzee's attractive smile would look like. But that's David Brin's intent, to break that empathetic limit on a lot of people. The chimpanzees here, as a segue, are not played off like a 1960s Planet of the Apes. They actually feel like I'm reading about apes. Maybe apes that can speak, maybe apes that are intelligent, but they actually are apes, and they do have quirks that, from my limited knowledge and experience with the apes, which is very limited to a few trips to the zoo and documentary, basically, they feel believable to me. They don't feel like people in ape bodies, or even people in ape makeup, as in like the old movies. There's some homage to it, because David Brin must have been aware of the popularity of the old Planet of the Apes movie, but this is not that. It makes perfect sense why humans would choose chimpanzees to uplift. They're our closest cousins. It would be easiest to teach them the forms of intelligence that led us to the stars, because of how close we are and how related we are. In fact, in this series, humans uplifted chimpanzees, and then they started uplifting the dolphins. Even though we got introduced to the dolphins first, and then the chimpanzees. Also, the Timbrimi ambassador, the Calthing, I really liked his character. He is very emotional, grounded in his feelings, but he's also a trickster, and he's always trying to pull a better prank, and he's almost daring God to get him back. And it's I like his character, and there's a point in the story where he faces some hardship, and some of that gets deadened for him a little bit, and it was actually kind of sad to see him become bland for a little while. The Calthing, he has to, at one point, travel across the countryside with a partner who's another alien called a Theninin. Now, Theninins are very, very individualistic. They don't have any sort of empathy sense. They just, if they do good, it's based purely on logic and reason, not on caring for something else. per se. Maybe religious devotion, but not to the same level of feeling that the Timbrimi or even some of the human characters have. Anyways, they travel through the mountains and are trying to stay out, out of the crosshairs of the invading, occupying alien force. And this whole time, Uther Calthing is trying to play a prank on the Thenanin. And the Thenanin's so dense, he's not even picking up any of the clues left behind by Uther Calthing. And it's funny watching him struggle with himself, trying to learn how to provoke this Thenanin, who's deadly serious, and he's only trying to play a prank on him. All the while fighting for survival, living off the land. Another thing we get to see too is a group of, they're criminals but not bad people, trying to uplift gorillas. And their society and their way of doing things is even more different than the chimpanzees. They're diverged from humanity a little bit further. That was really good. And I love what happens with them throughout the book too. Again, this book comes highly recommended. It deals with issues of duty, warfare, xenophobia, action, but the most important aspect of this book, or the most important theme, is empathy, in my opinion. Empathy is stressed heavily in Uplift War. How do we use empathy as an in an extrasensory way? This would make a great TV show or movie. It did not become dated over the past, I don't know how many, 30 or so years. It's not dated at all. There's no clunky technology, no crazy dated social ideals. And one thing is when you got Robert Donegal, who plays the Tarzan type savior of all the chimpanzees. That's the one aspect, and if they tone that down, it would make a great TV show. As it sits, it makes a great book. Comes highly recommended. This is a great series, has a lot to say, has a few corny action hero-y type stuff, but I can dig it. That's pretty good. Since it's been such a long time, there's a bonus review here. It's to do with the same series, the Uplift universe. However, this isn't a novel per se. It is a geek out guide to all the aliens in the Uplift universe. It's called Contacting Aliens, an illustrated guide. And in here you get a brief rundown as if you're an agent for the Earthling Council going out into the universe. It gives you a breakdown of how the Galactic Society works and all these different institutes that govern different aspects of society, a timeline of this make-believe universe, all the aliens that are mentioned as part of the story or only in passing. Really interesting stuff, really fun to read, really geeky. Almost kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons guide to Uplift Universe. And I really wish this series would have caught on stronger than it did, because it's very imaginative. David Brand is deeper in a lot of aspects than he's been given credit for, I think. I think he's an underrated sci-fi author. Even though his books have won Hugo and Nebula Awards, in today's day and age, where we consume sci-fi-like materials, a lot of pulp, superhero movies, and things like that, this is keeping the true sci-fi out there. This is me doing an attempt to promote something that makes you a better person for having read through it. At least in some respects. What I do with those lessons is another matter entirely, but I know now how important empathy is. I have a deeper understanding of how to use my feelings and be more environmentalist at the same time. That's what this book has done for me, and I'm sure it has done many other things for other people. Talking about Uplift War. Contacting aliens just adds a geeky smear onto the whole thing, just makes it a little bit more fun. If you have read this book, feel free to give a comment. Tell me what you thought. Tell me some things that I may have failed to mention or that you have a different opinion on. It would be fun to have a discussion with others who have read this book. If you want to show some support, give this video a like or give this channel, Arc of Gyan, a subscription. Again, my name is Isaac Markham. Thank you